Have you ever been treated like a criminal just for sitting peacefully in your own driveway? What if the HOA president turned your quiet morning into a police investigation because your car looked suspicious? And how sweet is it when her years of lording over ridiculous rules finally explode in her face? That morning began quietly and without any sense of drama as the early sky stretched pale and hazy above the Whispering Oaks HOA community while I sat right in my own driveway, engine off, waiting for the hardware store to open so I could pick up the folding table I'd ordered online for a small family barbecue later that weekend. The roads were clear, the air cool and calm, and I'd parked exactly where every rule allowed. My property, my garage door behind me, no street parking violation in sight. As I leaned back scrolling through my phone, the minutes ticked forward in that soft suburban silence, the kind these neighborhoods sell in their glossy brochures. Perfect lawns trimmed to the HOA-mandated 2.5 inches, beige siding gleaming, no visible trash cans, no pink flamingos, no signs of actual life. I was just another resident killing time before 9 a.m., nothing more. Then a silver SUV rolled into view and parked across the street like it owned the curb. The woman who stepped out, Linda Thompson, our beloved HOA president, carried that familiar air of assertive tension, iced coffee in one hand, phone in the other, posture stiff as a freshly painted fence post. She scanned the street with the suspicious intensity usually reserved for escaped convicts, not a guy in his own driveway. Our eyes met briefly. I gave the standard neighbor nod, polite, harmless, the unspoken good morning strangers exchange in places like this. She didn't nod back. She stared, measuring me like I was a code violation waiting to be cited. The peaceful stillness started feeling heavier, not because anything had changed, but because of the way she looked at me, like I was the problem simply for existing before her approved hours. I tried to focus on my phone again, telling myself not every icy glare meant war. But the sensation of being watched lingered like a fresh fine notice on the windshield. When I glanced up to check the time, she was already marching across the street, footsteps sharp against the pavement like little hammer blows on a gavel. She reached my window and knocked firm, demanding taps that screamed, "I have authority," instead of "excuse me." I rolled it down halfway, keeping my tone steady. "Morning, Linda." She folded her arms, sunglasses reflecting my face back at me like twin mirrors of judgment. "What exactly are you doing here?" Her voice dripped that fake polite HOA syrup. "This is a private community." Feel uncomfortable. I blinked, genuinely confused for a second. "I'm in my driveway, Linda." An online pickup. "Here's the confirmation email if you want to see it." I held up my phone screen. Her lips tightened into that thin moral smile she used at every board meeting. "You've been idling here too long. We have standards in Whispering Oaks. No loitering, no idling over 5 minutes. Rule 17B, Section 4. It disturbs the peace and lowers property values." She said it like she was quoting scripture, like my quiet wait was somehow a threat to the entire beige empire she ruled. The lot, my driveway, was empty except for me and her SUV. No one else was even awake yet. But discomfort in Linda's world was whatever she decided it was. Before I could laugh at the absurdity, she announced with full presidential certainty, "I'm calling the police. Your presence is suspicious and unsafe for the neighborhood." She turned away, phone already at her ear, pacing like she was starring in her own true crime reenactment. "Yes, officer, there's a man sitting in a car on Maple Lane refusing to leave watching the houses." Her voice carried that heroic urgency, the kind that turns bored housewives into neighborhood watch heroes overnight. I stayed still, hands visible on the wheel, breathing slow. Not out of fear, out of that weary understanding you get when you've lived here long enough to know how fast a simple morning can turn into a citation circus. I'd been the new guy who once dared to plant slightly taller shrubs last spring. She'd already sent 3 violation letters for that. Now this hit hardest. I was being reported to the cops for sitting in my own driveway before 9. A few minutes later, the community clubhouse employee, old Mr. Ramirez, who handled resident pickups, walked out to move a sign and caught the scene. He gave me a casual wave, the kind that said, "Another day in paradise." When he saw Linda on the phone, he paused, confused. "Everything okay?" "He's just a resident waiting for his order." Linda waved him off like he was the help. This is a safety issue. Idling. Even when Mr. Ramirez gently reminded her I lived 3 houses down and paid the same due she did. She clung to her narrative like it was glued with HOA glue. Danger might be here. The parking lot, no, my driveway, stretched into that strange suspended moment where logic and Karen logic collided. Then the police cruiser finally pulled up, lights flashing like a bad movie trailer. The officer stepped out calm and professional, approached my window. I explained again, driveway, my house, online order, email proof. He checked it, nodded, confirmed everything matched. You're fine, sir. Driveway isn't a crime. But the emotional weight didn't vanish. Being forced to prove I belonged in my own home stung deeper than any fine. The officer walked over to Linda. I couldn't hear every word, but I saw her posture stiffen, indignation rising as she insisted she'd acted responsibly for the community. He explained waiting quietly wasn't illegal. Her suspicion alone didn't justify the call. Her face stayed stern, resistant, like fairness itself was the real violation. When the officer returned and quietly told me I was free to stay, offering a brief sorry for the inconvenience, I thanked him and watched him drive away. The silence that followed felt heavier than before, shaped by the realization that some people carry assumptions so deep they'll summon blue lights rather than question their own paranoia. A moment later the clock hit 9. Mr. me on with a sympathetic look. I drove off to the store, table in the trunk soon after, but the memory burned. Linda wasn't done. Spring Oaks email chain exploded. Urgent safety concern on Maple Lane, the subject line screamed in all caps, the same caps she used for every minor grass height infraction. She'd twisted the morning into a full-blown neighborhood threat. Unknown male loitering in driveway, refused to leave, required police intervention. This could happen to any of us. We must enforce our rules strictly to protect property values. She attached a blurry phone photo of my car like it was evidence in a trial. The replies poured in, some neighbors echoing her fear, others too scared to disagree because Linda controlled the board, the fines, the social blacklist. I stayed silent at first. I'm with the shrubs. This time I watched on my dashcam for future encounters, and quietly noted her own violations. The oversized American flag flying past the 3-day limit, the unapproved RV parked behind her garage for 6 months, the beige paint on her shutters peeling because she'd skipped the mandatory touch-up. She preached perfection while living above the rules she weaponized. Classic HOA royalty. The escalation hit full throttle at the emergency board meeting she called 3 days later. We need to address this pattern of suspicious activity, she announced from the head table, voice all sugar and steel, smiling like a shark in pearls. Residents must understand that idling, waiting, or any deviation from approved schedules threatens us all. She proposed a new fine schedule, $250 for unauthorized driveway occupancy before 9 a.m. The room murmured. Fear does that. I sat in the back row, calm, recording on my phone tucked in my pocket. When it was my turn for public comment, I stood, voice steady. Linda, I was in my own driveway. You called the police on a resident for existing. But let's talk real threats. I projected the photos. Her flag, her RV, her untrimmed shrubs taller than mine ever were. The room went dead quiet. Her morning rant. I'm protecting everyone. Right next to her board meeting quote from last year. Rules apply equally or we lose credibility. Her face cracked, flipped into something lopsided and ugly. This is harassment. I was just what? I cut in, smiling the way she always smiled at violators. Looking out for the community? Funny how your community never included me until I pushed back. The board members shifted uncomfortably. One even muttered, she does have an RV. Votes came fast. Linda's emergency fine proposal died. Then the recall motion I'd quietly circulated the night before passed 8-1. She was removed effective immediately, her throne of beige tyranny toppled by her own hypocrisy. The room erupted, not in applause for me, but in that sweet collective exhale when the bully finally gets exposed. Linda stood there sputtering, cheeks redder than any HOA violation sticker, clutching her iced coffee like a shield. "You'll regret this," she hissed as security, yes, the HOA now had security, escorted her. I walked home that night through the same perfect streets, driveway empty and peaceful once more. The folding table sat in my backyard, beige approved of course, ready for the barbecue. Neighbors who'd stayed silent before now waved. The power that once terrified them had crumbled because one guy chose patience, documentation, and the perfect moment to flip the script. In the end, the lesson is simple. HOA Karens thrive on fear and selective rules, but quiet observation and ironclad proof can turn their empire to dust. Document everything, stay calm, and when they least expect it, strike. Justice is sweetest when served with their own hypocrisy on a folding table they can't find.